Dave Lamina still your, is he still on the BZA? Yeah. Yeah, my Apple Watch. I'm not wearing this pink also. Yeah, they told me to have it on board. They told me to have it on board. The sonogram person still. And we were actually in the pneumonia. And he was born when I was doing it. He told me people, like, oh, we don't have the benefit. Juliet. Are we ready? Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, we're going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Clerk, will you take the roll? Here. Present. If I may, we have additional people that are coming, so we're going to take care of a little business up front. We had a request for an accommodation on the dates for hearings, and we are not having a meeting next week on the 18th, the 14th. That's. Can you hear me now? Thank you. I'm not used to eating the pipe. So, can you hear? Yeah. Good. So, we're looking at the dates in this block of October. The week of the 17th, we're looking at that week. Hopefully, we can put something together for the 18th and the 20th to as alternate dates to the ones that we have previously. Not the 19th, that's correct. So we're looking at those, and I suspect that we'll come up with something over the next couple of days. In the meanwhile, we have noticed that the notice for the meeting next week has been sent out. We're required to under the rules of the legislature, as well as the open meetings law. And so that will be postponed. A notice of postponement will be sent out for that forthwith. If I could then start, if I could, with a little bit of an opening statement. There's maybe some people here who were at the last hearing. Maybe there's some people who were not at the last hearing. But just to essentially explain our role as an advisory commission and what duties we have and what duties we may have and what we can do and what we can't do. So if you'll just bear with me, please. I'll start by telling you that this is the third time the Temporary Redistricting Commission has been assembled to fulfill its obligation under the Nassau County Charter. The second of the several planned meetings are scheduled and will be heard at various locations in Nassau County. Those are two that we just referenced before we started this. As stated in the 1995 final report of the Commission on Government Revision, the function of the Commission is to recommend one or more plans to the county legislature for dividing the county into legislative districts. The Commission consists of 11 people with a non-voting chair, that's me, being appointed by the county executive. There are 5 members named by the presiding officer and 5 by the minority leader. The Commission permits but does not require public hearings. However, the prior reapportionments have, in their processes, established the tradition that permissive meetings seeking public input should be held, so we're going to continue that. The streamed hearings are posted on the county website together with the transcripts of hearings by the clerk of the county legislature, who is charged with the duty to retain documents and official communications and are available to the general public. Those are up there right now. And emails and other written submissions are also received and are available for inspection. However, these will be disseminated by the commissioners to the clerk's office. The legislative clerk is working with technicians to simplify the website. It takes a little effort to get to where our documents are. So the technicians are working on that to change that website. The county legislature allocated $985,000 to fund the work of the commission. The allocation is divided equally between the commissioners appointed by the presiding officer and the minority leader. However, a portion of the $985,000 is set aside for stenographic services, that's our young lady over here, and ASL, language interpreters, and as well as it's called language, what is it called? Language line. And for any of you who are non-English speaking people who need help in looking at those, there are, I believe it's 165 different languages you can be reading on it. There's tablets back there to give you assistance. Each delegation of appointees divides the balance of the balance of the $985,000 for the purchase of mapping technology software and hiring experts, counsel, and staff that they deem necessary. So the leftover money goes to one side and the other side for that purpose. In developing a map or maps, Commission must be aware of and comply with both federal and state law. In other words, whatever they make, whatever they do, whatever they come up with, whatever they draw, if anything, has to be in compliance with the state and federal law. But that transparency is achieved by significant outreach to the public and holding public hearings on any maps or plans for redistricting submitted by the commissioners or others. You may have an idea for a map and you may have the ability to draw one. Certainly something that you might want to consider drawing. Once the maps or plans are drawn, they are turned over to the legislature. Likewise, all the transcripts and public comment that are generated by the Temporary District Advisory Commission are submitted to the full legislature for their consideration. The full legislature will conduct hearings on the submissions by appropriate committee and then by the entire legislature. The goal is to have the commission complete its hearings by the end of October so that the legislature has adequate time to hold its hearings. The county legislature may reject, adopt, revise, amend the redistricting plan or plans or any recommendations with the Temporary District Advisory Commission. Is there something wrong, Mr. Forza? Okay. All right, we just loaded the template. We loaded the. I'm just a lawyer. I can't figure it out. So, can you hear me now? Can you still hear me now? Okay. Okay. Further, this commission will stream the hearings and keep a record of open for a period of time after the completion of the public hearings. That will be set once we arrive at a final date, and those submissions can be post-hearing, so you can send out whatever you want to. Any correspondence or email or other information that received after that date will also be sent to the full legislature for their consideration if they so choose. In preparation for these hearings, a notice of this meeting and others was sent to the following: the Office of the County Executive, Counsel to the Minority Commissioner, Mr. Benitez, who sits to my left, members of the Majority Commission delegation, which sit over here to my right, the National League of Women Voters, City of Glen Cove, the City of Long Beach, the Town of Hempstead, Town of North Hempstead, Town of Oyster Bay, 22 villages in the Town of Hempstead, 30 villages in the Town of North Hempstead, 16 villages in the Town of Oyster Bay, 55 libraries, 57 school districts, 67 civic associations, 50 chambers of commerce, and 150 news and media outlets that serve Nassau County. Last, let me repeat, the public may send in written requests or questions to the attention of the Nassau County Legislature at 1550 Franklin Avenue in Mineola, New York, or email the commission. And you can come later and I'm going to read it on the record, but you may want to take it down in another location. LEGPUBLICCOMMENT, leg public comment at NassauCountyNY.gov. If you have anything you want to send in, feel free to do so. With that, I'll turn the mic over to Mr. Mejias.
All right, how about now? Is this better? No? Maybe it's me. At the last hearing, there were over 120 people in the room, and we had some great public comment. Now, we have deep concerns with the lack of transparency in these hearings. The transparency of these hearings is important and should be a guiding principle of the entire redistricting process. It improves public confidence and helps ensure the integrity of the process and the accountability of those responsible for leading it. Providing the public with relevant redistricting materials will facilitate meaningful public feedback, which in turn will ensure that we propose maps which respect communities of interest in Nassau County. A lack of transparency is often associated with unlawful redistricting. The failure to be transparent is creating litigation risk and the risk of recommending maps which are not legally compliant. The Commission website continues to be grossly deficient. Following our last meeting, nothing has been done. And it appears, despite the record in the last meeting and the public comment, to have been completely neglected. The Commission website does not have the capacity to accept public comment on the redistricting process. The clerk of the legislature has not agreed to our request to set up a dedicated email address on the Commission's website to accept public comment. The website is a perfect illustration of how closed off, non-transparent, and non-responsive the process has been so far. The chairman had talked about the website giving information to the public about these meetings, which is not true. None of the information listed in any of the resolutions that the Democrats proposed has been listed on the website. At the last meeting, the Democratic commissioners introduced a resolution calling for more transparency, which specifically included a list of items for inclusion on the website. It was claimed that the resolution was unnecessary because the information it called for was already included on the website and already posted, and all 5 commissioners voted against it. fact, none of the information listed in the resolution was actually posted. There is no text and summary of all applicable laws. There's no schedule of all commission meetings and hearings posted on the website at least 7 days in advance. Agendas for each public meeting and hearing are not posted on the website at least 24 hours in advance. The video recordings and transcripts of past meetings are not posted. We've asked for all documents, draft maps, resolutions, analysis, and other documents to be considered by the Commission to be posted on the website at least 24 hours in advance of consideration. We've asked for pertinent information on the current county legislative maps, including image files, shape files, block equivalency files, and population data tables containing all relevant demographic information for each district in any proposed map. We've also asked that any proposed maps to be considered by the Commission, including the image files and shape files, population data, demographic information, be posted at least 24 hours in advance of any consideration of maps. We ask for the website to have the capacity to permit members of the public to submit written comments and testimony, proposed maps, and correspondence, all of which should be posted on the Commission website. As of now, the website still has not been updated or upgraded in any significant way. We do thank the clerk for correcting Mr. Pernick's name on the website. The website is so woefully inadequate that under the heading Most Recent Agenda, the website links to an agenda from January 3rd, 2013, in the last redistricting cycle. The website also links to proposed redistricting maps, which were rejected in the last cycle 10 years ago. In fact, if anybody had tried to Google Nassau County, New York, Redistricting Commission hearing dates, you would not get anything that resembles a link on a county website to give you correct information about this hearing, hearing time, or even future hearings. There's nothing. You can't even Google where these meetings are, let alone go to a website. And if you go to the county website, not having to do with the Redistricting Commission, it lists this meeting, September 8th, 2022, at 6 p.m., to be held at the Nassau County Legislature in Mineola. The Nassau County Legislature's website lists this meeting here, September 8, 2022, at 1 p.m. So clearly, when we talk about transparency, it's not. I Googled transparency, and the definition. I'm not that smart. It says easy to see or detect. The only thing that's easy to see right now is that the public is being purposely excluded from participating in this process by either not being told what the law and the facts are, or being told to go to the wrong place for this hearing tonight, or to go to the right place but at the wrong time. And maybe that's the difference between the 120 people we had in the last meeting and the number of people we have in the room here today, which is far less than the 120 people that we had at our last hearing. So nothing has changed, nothing has been addressed. Insufficient, inaccurate, and conflicting notices of this hearing on the county website itself is indicative of how this process is not being taken seriously. This is a very serious process, and who represents you going forward is a very serious process as well. In addition, while I do appreciate that after the fact, after we were noticed of 6 hearing dates, this is the second hearing, by the way, and we still don't have the information regarding the hearing dates that we would like on the website. So a third of the hearings are already gone by that they've agreed to. We'd love more, but the Republicans are not going to agree to more. A third of them have gone by already without the public being properly noticed. And I do appreciate, after the fact, some consideration as to moving some hearing dates that are conflicts with members on the Democratic side. But, the status quo should be kept. There is a record of things that have happened in the past. There is precedent that we would like adhere to. Almost exactly 10 years ago to the day, September 5th, 2012, both sides, and there was a Republican majority then and a Democratic minority then as well, both sides tasked their executive directors with choosing dates for the meetings, the number of meetings that were going to be held. Both sides had input, both sides' executive directors got together, and at that hearing on September 5th, 2012, Mr. Maroney was also the chairman at that time. He inquired as to both executive directors as to whether or not they'd spoken about putting together a hearing schedule so that both sides can be sure that we're there, we can notice the public effectively and efficiently. And Chairman Maroney at that time, on page 11 of the transcript, which we will submit to the clerk of the legislature for admission to the record, asked the both executive directors, as a result of that, did you come up with a consensus for this group to consider? And Mr. Kiernan, the executive director of the Republicans at that time, said we have 4 dates that we've agreed to so far, and went into the dates and how they came to a consensus with Lawrence Corcoran Doolin, who was the executive director on the Democratic side for the hearing dates. So hearing dates have been imposed upon us, and without consideration, which means some of us can't go, or they're not necessarily in communities that we'd like them to be in. We want more hearings. And the fact that, we have a screenshot of the Nassau County Legislature's website that tells people to come to a hearing at the wrong time, which we will also be submitting to the record, and the county website, which posts this meeting in the wrong location, which we will also be submitting to the clerk of the legislature for entry into the record, just shows how little regard there is for the public's input and the opinion of the public. There is exactly, I think, 1 hour between the time that our maps are due on each side to be submitted on November 10th, correct? Before that, we draw maps, we submit it to the legislature, the public should have some input. We want there to be plenty of time for the public to have input on the maps that are being proposed so that communities of interest can be heard, changes could possibly be made, and the commission can do the right thing in representing the people of Nassau County. The Republican commissioners and chairman have scheduled exactly 1 hour between the time our maps are to be submitted and the Nassau County legislature is to consider them. 1 hour. That's not enough time. It prevents public input. It takes weeks to analyze and understand proposed maps. Even the most savvy person who knows a lot about redistricting would take days to analyze these maps. The way this commission has operated so far is completely inconsistent with redistricting commissions throughout the state of New York. We've gotten started late. We're not noticing the public. We are giving the public misinformation as to where the hearings are and what time they are, and the Democratic commissioners have had zero input as to the dates and agendas and places of these hearings. Contrary to what the chairman has told you, there is no place on the website for emails to the Temporary Redistricting Commission directly. The dates are not correct on the website. There's no language line on the website. There's nothing you can click to read about what the public notice is in other languages on the website. And it is interesting that the chairman has said that these hearings are meant to solicit opinions from the public, but we don't tell the public where these meetings are and what time, and nor do we, and the chairman has said that we're streaming these meetings, but no one knows where, how to click on it, what time. There's no information about that. So while we could all be staring at this camera and streaming into the internet, into the abyss of the web, there's probably no one on the other end of that camera because no one knows that this is going on right now. And that's the biggest problem that we have. And that's why we want to hear from you, whether or not you think it's a problem, and whether or not you think you've been given enough public notice for your friends, families, neighbors in your communities to be heard on this very important topic. Because these legislative maps will determine who your legislators are, who determine so many things that happen in your everyday lives, from police, public health, mental health, social services, and a myriad of things having to do with the safety, health, and welfare of the people of Nassau County. So that's why it's important that we hear from you, the public, not just here tonight, but throughout the county, in multiple communities, so that you can be heard and that you can be properly represented and your community's interests can be properly be represented. And we want to hear about that. So if you think what's happening so far is wrong, I want to hear about it. Thank you.
If I may. Can you hear me, Mr. McKenna? Okay. Number one, this is being streamed. Number two, the last meeting was streamed and up on the county website the following morning. It's there now. It was there then. The notices were sent out to all the different people in excess of 450 locations. A lot of people in this room might have gotten one. Fact of the matter is that notices were sent out. There is one piece of paper on that thing that says 2013, on the website that says 2013. It's an outlier. It's the only one there. What's happened is whoever went and looked it up, they forgot to go over and click on the link for this place because it's there and they are all the listed there. I have a screenshot of them, but I didn't realize I was going to be arguing this piece of this nonsense today. Streaming is going on. The things that Mr. Mejia's complained are not up based upon what they did in the last session is wrong. Plain and simply wrong. The fact of the matter is the transcripts contain everything they put on the record at the last meeting, and they're up on the website right now.
Which website?
Ours. In Nassau County. There's only one office that's responsible for the documents in North Hempstead. In Nassau County. It's the clerk's office. That's where they all go. That's where the emails go. That's where everything is going to go, and that's the nexus of what we're doing here. They have to get there.
But the
Have
commission.
there been glitches? Absolutely. There's no question about it. We spent a lot of time trying to correct those things. We spent a lot of time trying to get rid of that 2013 thing, which has no business being on the site. The fact of the matter is that happens. Never happened to anybody else, just us, just the Republicans. That's nonsense.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know how to start this. I would just speak more loudly. Mr. Chairman, can I make a suggestion that rather than a back-and-forth critique of the procedures by which we got here, we do what the commission was tasked to do, which is to hear from the public.
But the public
We're not
doesn't know.
here for us to speak. We're here for the public to speak. And the public that is here should now be heard.
But the public doesn't know what we're here to do because they don't know what this commission is about. If we all have cell phones here, right? I challenge anyone in this room to go to the Temporary Districting Advisory Commission website and tell us if the only document on that website refers to 2013.
And here is
And on the TDAC website, can you click a link to this mysterious streaming that's happening?
yes, there is.
The
As a matter of
Temporary
fact,
Redistricting Advisory Commission's website.
yes, there is. As a matter of fact, and I'm going to give you the website you have to go to. It's NassauCountyNY.gov /3530 public / I'll let you have this. Okay. NassauCountyNY.gov /3530 /public -notice -index. And it has on it, please, would you would have looked it up. Now, having said that, if any of you want to come up here and see what this is, You can pass it around the room. That's exactly what it says. Hold on a second. I'm not going to. I'm not biting into Mr. Behere's debate. So
Mr. Chairman, that's not on the Temporary Redistricting Advisory Commission's website.
There's only one website, and it's the county website.
But
So if you want to,
has their own website on the county. If you go to the county website and you hit the Temporary Districting Advisory Commission, click. Let's see what's going on at TDAC. None of this is there. Zero. You don't know what to stream. You don't have the agenda. You don't have the public meeting. Listen to the public meetings. Nothing. No transcripts. Nothing. And we're a third of the way through the process that you proposed, and still the public has zero information on the TDAC website. Go on your phones. Go to the TDAC website on the county. I just did it. There's nothing there.
This is from the county website and contains. I'm not going to argue with you, Mr. McKenna. The fact of the matter is that this is from that. All right, let's move to the business at hand. First speaker. First speaker. You're out of order. Did you file one of these? 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 A request to speak. It's right here. Fill one out and you have an opportunity to speak. Fill one out and you have an opportunity to speak. Right now I'm calling on Regina.
Mr. Chair, I have a comment, an opening comment on a slightly different topic, not about the website. Can you hear me, by the way? Is this connected? No. Is that any better? All right. So, in his opening comments, our chairperson noted that this is an advisory commission. And it's true that we have the word advisory in our name, but I want to take a minute to emphasize the importance of our work. Now, the Nassau County Charter requires the legislature to consider any maps that are adopted by this body. The legislature can, as the chair said, the legislature can adopt, reject, amend, modify them, but they're required to consider any maps that are voted out of this body by 6 votes. And that's a really big responsibility, because we have the job of soliciting the views from all of the residents of the county, from every corner of the county, and presenting the legislature with a map that actually takes into account the concerns, the considerations from every community in our county. We also have the responsibility to present maps that comply with the law. And that's a very complicated task. It's a very important task. There are a lot of legal rules, doctrines, that apply to the maps that we adopt. We have federal law. The Equal Protection Clause has a set of requirements that constrain redistricting at every level of government. We have the Federal Voting Rights Act, which requires us to ensure that communities of color have an equal opportunity to participate and elect candidates of their choice. It may require us, it does require us, to draw majority-minority districts when certain factors are present. And we know those factors are present here in Nassau County. We also have state law. And there have been a lot of changes in state law that didn't apply to this process 10 years ago, and it's worth talking about and being aware of. First, there are new rules under the Municipal Home Rule Law that govern county-level redistricting. And the most significant of those rules is a prohibition on drawing maps with partisan advantage. What's that? It's a prohibition on partisan gerrymandering, on drawing maps to shut one political party out of the political process, to draw maps that have bias, that's slated in favor of one political party over the other. This is new. We didn't have these provisions 10 years ago. And it's incredibly important for us to solicit views from members of the public about the current map to ensure that we are able to present maps that comply with these new requirements. We also have a state voting rights act, which was signed into law by the governor, I believe earlier this year. It'll take effect next year before the first election under the new set of maps. And we have a very significant responsibility to understand this new legislation and make sure that we're doing everything we can to comply with this new legislation. Of course, because it's the right thing to do, but also to protect the county and county taxpayers against unnecessary lawsuits, unnecessary litigation, I think we would all want to achieve. That's why it's important to be transparent. That's why everything that Commissioner Mejias has been raising is incredibly important, and that's why I hope moving forward we can turn a new page and work collaboratively. I really want to work collaboratively. I truly want to be able to sit down and come up with the best way to develop maps for the county genuinely. And I hope we can find a way to do that because we haven't been able to work collaboratively so far. I hope that can change. I hope that we can provide information to the public so the public can fully participate in the process. And most importantly, I hope that we can adopt maps and compromise and reach a consensus around maps that are lawful, that comply with federal and state law, and especially these new laws that we haven't had to contend with in past redistricting cycles.
Mr. Chairman, I just renew my comment that it is now 6:45 on a public hearing that was supposed to start at 6 o'clock, and we haven't yet heard from anyone in the public. So I think step one is to move past the political bickering and hear from members of the public. And I would ask that you call the first speaker.
We're just asking for the people that went to the meeting at the legislature that was posted.
Regina
Give them time to get here tonight.
Regina Gouverneur. Good evening.
Okay, is this connected? Hello, can you hear me? Okay. My name is Regina Gouverneur. As president of the League of Women Voters of Fort Washington, Manhasset, I'm appearing on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Nassau County. I have lived in Fort Washington for about 52 years. The League is a nonpartisan grassroots organization dedicated to encouraging everyone to participate fully in our democracy. We do not support or oppose any political party or candidate. After careful study and consensus, we may advocate on governmental issues in the public interest, as I do tonight. The League is here to advocate on behalf of a fair and transparent redistricting process. Fair and transparent means providing the public with basic information regarding the Commission's consultants and mappers and an advanced schedule of meetings and proposed deadlines. The opportunity to attend all working sessions of this Commission with sufficient notice of time and place. And finally, the opportunity for meaningful input, meaning having their concerns and suggestions formally addressed. Under the proposed Commission process, noted by Commissioner Mejias at the August 31st hearing, and I quote, "The maps proposed by both delegations are to be made public by 5 p.m. on November 10th and then sent to the legislature 3.5 hours later. The hearing on these maps is the very same day. So the public has 1 hour between 5 and 6 p.m. to review maps that may rule its government for the next 10 years." End quote. This proposed process is unacceptable. It allows only pro forma public comment and not even pro forma map amendment by the Commission. It is neither fair nor transparent, as it violates key elements of your charge from the legislature, state, and federal laws. There is ample time for the Commission to release draft maps, provide time for public comment, and to consider map revisions that address public concerns. The Nassau County Charter requires this Commission to submit a proposed map to the Nassau County Legislature by January 7th, 2023, nearly 2 months after the Commission's unnecessarily accelerated submission deadline. With respect to the congressional and state redistricting process, both the Independent Redistricting Commission and the Special Master in Parkenrieder versus Hochul released draft maps, provided an opportunity for public comments after their release, and made revisions to reflect public concerns. There is absolutely no reason why Nassau County shouldn't plan the same process. The League strongly encourages the Commission to allow the public to evaluate the process used to design and propose legislative districts, and finally, to assess whether recommended districts reflect the interests and input of our communities. Thank you.
Judy Esterquest.
Thank you. My name is Judy Esterquest, and I have served as a trustee of the Manhasset Public Library for 6 years. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters. I live in Manhasset for over 3 decades. At the August 31st hearing, both Chair Maroney and Commissioner Mahias repeated the phrase, fair and transparent. Fair redistricting is foundational to our democracy. Transparent redistricting is foundational to our trust in democracy. Fair and transparent gives voters voice and confidence. Its absence breeds cynicism, disengagement, crisis. Recent news shows what happens when Americans lose trust. Fair redistricting keeps communities of shared interest together to strengthen their voices, respects natural boundaries, and seeks a compact shape. My district, however, which includes this town hall, looks like districts where politicians choose their voters, not where voters do the choosing. Similar to the 1812 district that inspired the word gerrymander, District 9 is a monstrous horned creature rearing back on a long, long neck with a misshapen, almost cloven body, hence the visual I gave you. It appears an extreme partisan gerrymander, snaking east and west to aggregate isolated enclaves of selected voters, its perimeter defined by no natural borders. It brings together no communities of interest, only 7 fractured school districts and many fractured villages. What would fair look like? Perhaps putting all of Manhasset with all of Port Washington and all of Roslyn, which almost targets the target size. The Long Island Sound bordering its west, north, and east. Even more important, it would be socially, culturally, and economically coherent with shared institutions. Our special districts, fire, water, parks, would not be divided. Rather than fracturing our 8 school districts, we would have 3 whole districts, each with its own vibrant community. Our League of Women Voters offers forums for our peninsula's local and state elections. As for residents without school children, we all shop in the limited number of large grocery stores, specialty bakeries, hardware, and florists. We all use the same LIRR line. Restaurants across the peninsula are neighborhood favorites for everyone. Cultural events and civic spaces bring us together. We enjoy our shared shoreline, live events at the Landmark Theater, and our 3 great public libraries, history walks and cemetery tours, our science museum, art museum, and of course our amazing Bar Beach. Manhasset is now arbitrarily divided across 3 legislative districts, and Roslyn is divided across 4 districts. Our peninsula should be made whole. Residents cannot advocate effectively when our voices are fractured. Please reward our trust by ensuring this redistricting gives fair outcomes by making its process transparent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Miss Esterquest, may I ask you a question, Miss Esterquest?
I will send everybody this to the portal, but I...
So first of all, thank you for sending this in. Please do send it in so we can add it to the record and have it officially considered and part of the formal record. You had mentioned right now Manhasset is split across 3 districts. Roslyn is split across 4. Do I have that
Yes.
correct? Could you explain to the commission how that affects you and how that affects voters in Roslyn and Manhasset to have your community split across 3, 4 different districts?
Well, part of what happens is that when you hold community forums for legislative forums, for example, I'm going to speak as a league member, you have to explain to people which district they're in, and they're often confused because we vote for the same Senate candidate, New York Senate candidate. We vote for one Assembly District candidate. We vote for one congressional candidate. Now, that's a much bigger area. Why should we vote for, across 2 places, 7 different legislators? That doesn't make sense. Simultaneously, if you want to reach out to the legislature for something and you're saying, we would really like to talk about issue A, B, C, you need to explain to everybody they have to reach out to different legislators. That is a far more confusing message. And I remind you, the League studies things, we reach consensus internally, and we don't advocate unless it's something that we think is correct and in the public interest and nonpartisan. And then we want to be able to message it simply. And it is impossible to message anything simply when the jurisdiction of the voters crosses so many lines. I'm not going to say it's as bad as separating minority voters, or as bad as separating voters that you think are going to vote in one way or another, but it does make it very difficult for the voices of the peninsula to be heard as one voice. And these three communities, particularly Manhasset and Fort Washington, because Roslyn does spread off to the east, these two communities are very, very interconnected. Why should they have different representatives? Does that answer your question?
We're going to put this in the record anyway. We'll make a copy of this and we'll put it in the record as well.
I haven't seen it. Okay. Susan Gothera, did I pronounce it right this time?
Susan Goderer.
Gothera.
The H messes everybody up, so just ignore the H. Hi, everybody. My name is Susan Goderer. I'm the director of the Nassau County, New York Civil Liberties Union, and I'm working in coalition with the League of Women Voters across Nassau County. I was asked last time at the legislature to sort of review best practices according to NYCLU, and while I still don't have them for you in writing, I thought I would be able to do that tonight. And also it will be useful for the people who are here to hear them as well. I do have a question, though. That short window of time and the schedule that's been set for the maps are approved and then the maps are presented and then the legislature votes, I heard an hour, 3 hours later. Is it within your power to change that schedule?
Yes.
So I will ask you to commit to changing that schedule so that there is more time between those things.
This is a schedule. This is not in indelible ink.
Will you put it in indelible ink that the public has more
I
time?
will talk to the delegations and see what they want to do. But here's the answer. Here's the answer to the question. That you got to start somewhere. You got to put your pen to the paper. You have to, in order to get something going, you got to do something about it to get it moving. And that's what's happening. We wanted to get it moving. We needed to get it moving. We got it moving. There are glitches. It's going to happen. There's nothing we can do about that. The date on November 10th was a date for presentation of maps, not having them become law. To tell us what you did, show us what you did. It's not just them and them. Mr. McKenna may have a map he wants to put in. The League of Women Voters may have a map that they want to put in.
So why is everybody under the impression that there's a 3-hour window?
Well, because it's set up that way just to give people a guideline.
So then can you expand the guidelines,
That's
please?
right.
Thank you so much. Will you commit to doing that?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll move on to, and as far as the website goes, I went on the website. The path that I took was Nassau County Legislature to the quick links down the right-hand side to Temporary Districting Advisory Committee, and all I saw were your names and the 2013 agenda. So even if it does exist the way you say it does exist, it means that it's hard to find, and that needs to be fixed as well. I'm used to Nassau County and their websites. The police reform website was taken down. It's hard to find everything. Agendas never get posted where you can see them, and if they are, they're posted in some sort of, I don't even know, hieroglyphics or something. So that's Nassau County, used to it, but it's shenanigans and it has to stop, and it shouldn't be happening with this crew. So, okay, so on that note, the first and probably most important aspect of a properly functioning redistricting process should be that it is transparent and provides opportunities for meaningful public input before and after draft maps are published. There should be an adequate number of hearings to allow equitable access to public input, which means that holding one hearing in Glen Cove with 28,000 residents and one hearing in Hempstead with 800,000 residents is not equitable. And so I would also ask you to commit to more hearings along those lines. Commissioners of both parties should be collaborating on every aspect of the process, including the number and location of hearings. Hearings should be widely publicized through official channels and on social media channels and in all relevant languages, which is not just Spanish in Nassau County. There should be meaningful opportunity for public input before and after maps are drawn and published, and the public should have all the relevant data they need to evaluate the maps. That means the data that you looked at to create the maps, and the commissioner's justifications for the decisions after the maps are drawn. Voting on a draft map the day it is published is unacceptable. So to comply with the law, obviously, is best practices, and provide information on the law to the public. So you have a job to educate the public as well. To make sure the draft maps comply with the equal population requirement, the commissioner should release shape files and block equivalency files along with the draft maps, not dilute or diminish voting strengths of racial and language minorities, which is required in both the Federal Voting Rights Act of 1965 and the New York State John Lewis Voting Rights Act. The commission should conduct and publish the analysis, including the data, to determine the number and shape of districts, illustrating that communities of color's voting strength has not been diluted. In order to show that the maps comply with the compactness requirement and prohibition on favoring or disfavoring incumbents, the commission should also show common measures of compactness, such as the Polsby-Popper and Schwartzberger scores. The commission should also show explanations of public input relating to Nassau County's communities of interest. And I just want to say that a lack of transparency, which is already apparent in this process, can be corrected by following these practices. A continued lack of transparency will undermine public confidence and trigger a natural assumption that the commission has something to hide, or that it is driven by a legally impermissible motive. NYCLU will be watching the entire process. Thank you for your time.
Susan, I may call you Susan because I don't want to mess up your last name again. I'll say it again, and I said it at the last hearing that you spoke at. I wish you were here when North Hempstead did their redistricting, because you would be aghast with what they did. They took that man out of there, out of his district, into another district where he has to, and changed his district number so that he's not there anymore. Thank you for doing this, for what you do here. I wish you had done it before. That said, we will take everything seriously that's being said here tonight. And we do take everything serious, but please do not accuse anybody of anything in any way, shape, or form that there's some conspiracy going on here. There is no conspiracy going on here. These people over here and over here are serving for no money at all. They're volunteers. They're here and they're going to do a darn good job. And they're going to do the job that they were asked to do by this commission.
I don't believe you heard me accuse anybody of a conspiracy. Thank you.
I just need to note, the speaker did not accuse anybody of anything, and as a matter of practice, it's deeply concerning for any members of this commission to criticize a member of the public or question a member of the public in that sort of hostile way. So, Ms. Goddard, I hope you continue to come and offer your views to this commission. Thank you for testifying.
Okay, next speaker, former member of the county legislature, Wayne Wink.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to make it clear from the outset, Judy Estequest and I did not coordinate. We did not speak even before this meeting, and yet we're talking about the same topic in many respects. what Judy described, and described better than I possibly could, of what transpired 10 years ago, the only advantage I have over Judy is that I was the embodiment of it. I was, in fact, the poster child of it, because it was my district that was literally drawn and quartered 10 years ago. And it's not even a matter of taking different communities of interest and putting them with other communities of interest. They divided up Roslyn itself, my home community, into 4 separate districts. Okay? Drawn and quartered was a barbaric form of punishment for criminal offenses 200 years ago and was outlawed. And yet, in the form of gerrymandering, it's alive and well here in Nassau County. And before you make the argument that, as the ACLU woman represented, we cannot prohibit, we prohibit either favoring or disfavoring incumbency. The fact of the matter is, in 2013, I was one of 2 legislators to be put into the same district. The other one happened to be a colleague of mine on the Democratic side, out of 19. Now, that is too random to be possible, except intentional. And when you factor in the fact that, Mr. Maroney, you'll remember this, the ill-fated illegal attempt to redistrict in 2011, which was thrown out by the courts, did the exact same thing, except instead of sending me to a district further east, it sent me to a district further west. So, look, I've been in this business a long time, and I try not to take too many things personally, but, there comes a point when I'm constantly being thrown into someone else's district that, I begin to wonder whether it's me. And I'm reminded of the old line that, I may be paranoid, but it doesn't mean they're not out to get you. So, but having said that, you, Mr. Maroney, brought up some distinctions that this commission may or may not have with the North Hempstead Commission. I'll remind you that one of them, though, one similarity you have with that commission was the fact that at this very podium, at this very spot, almost 3 months ago, Jack Martins, the former co-chair of the New York State Independent Redistricting Commission at the state level, came up here and castigated this town board for not putting maps out in advance of the hearings about the commission not having done that. Now, I noticed when I walked in here, there's an agenda and there's opportunity to speak. There were no maps. So perhaps Mr. Martin's comments didn't make it to this commission. But I find it interesting that he spent a great deal of time criticizing North Hempstead's process, while at the same time, apparently, you guys are following the same process there. But there are some differences. And I'm anticipating, if past is prologue, that one major difference that's going to occur between the North Hempstead Commission and the commission that sits in front of me right now is that that commission voted and approved 4 maps in a bipartisan manner, submitted all 4 of those maps well in advance of public hearings to the town board. They were reviewed, they were put out for the public to consider, and the town board picked one of them. But all 4 maps that they were given an opportunity to vote on were voted on and passed by a commission in a bipartisan manner. I pray, although past being prologue, I don't hold much hope that you're going to follow that lead of the North Hempstead Commission. Thank you.
One question, Wayne, if I may.
What's that?
One question, if I may.
Okay.
When the map was finally adopted, what was the vote?
The vote of the town board
Yes.
was probably the exact same vote you're going to see on the county legislature. It was
I know.
party line. But the commission
And what was
voted
the vote?
bipartisanly
What was the
for
vote?
those maps. It was 4-3.
4-3. And who were the 4?
The 4 were the Democrats.
Okay. No,
Now remind me, if you will, 10 years ago, when the vote took place to redistrict the Nassau County legislature, what was the vote then?
I don't remember.
Well, I can tell you right now, because I sat on that legislature, it was a party line vote. So please, before you start casting aspersions, remember your history, and you, more than anybody, knows the history of this commission. Those votes occur on a partisan basis, but the commission voted bipartisanly. Please follow their lead in that regard.
The next speaker is Kathy Middleton Lewis, Esquire.
I just want to thank you, Wayne, I will say, having sat next to Wayne, he was an excellent legislator. We served 2 terms together, and you served your community very well, and you know what you're talking about, so much so that I would actually look at Wayne's notes during legislative session, and he would tell me what was going on. He was an excellent legislator. It was really an honor to serve with you in the Nassau County Legislature. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Middleton Lewis. I am a 22-year resident of the town of Westbury, Newcastle. I am also an attorney, and I appear before this commission in that capacity. I asked this commission that as it considers the issue of removing Westbury Newcastle from LD2, that we consider and remember one thing, and that is that this country is built on the understanding that democracy is strengthened when the voices of all of our people, particularly those who are historically marginalized and silenced, are allowed to be heard. We are weakened as a society when we stifle the voices of some communities while aggrandizing and enlarging the voices of others. We lose ourselves as a society. We become less of what we have the potential of becoming and more of what we do not want to be. And the removal of Westbury Newcastle from LD2 does just that. It limits the power of Westbury Newcastle as a community. It dilutes our voices. It politically isolates us from communities which share our interests and goals, our political culture, and our concerns. It crushes our ability to elect candidates of our political office, of our own choosing, candidates who hail from our community, who understand on a visceral level our lived experiences, and who possess a commitment to fight for the laws and policies that are important to us. And so I ask that as this commission considers this issue of removing Westbury from LD2, that it thinks about the people of Westbury Newcastle, that you think about the people who live on Prospect Avenue, the people who live on Rockland Street where I live, my neighbors on Oxford Street, the people who participate in activities at the Yes We Can Community Center, the people who participate in communities at the Senior Center in Westbury, and that you understand that by removing us from LD2, you are muzzling us. You are silencing our voices, and it will be the beginning of the death knell of democracy. Thank you.
May I ask you a question?
Yes, you can.
First off, it's nice to meet a neighbor. I live in Westbury too. How do you have the notion that LD2 is being considered to be taken out of?
Well, my understanding is that Westbury Newcastle may be removed from LD2 as a legislative district.
How did you come by that? Did somebody tell you that, or?
I heard information from other members of my community that this is something that is possibly going to happen, and it very much concerns me.
Are you aware of any of that? Are you aware of any of that? No. I hope you're not. I hope the information you had was wrong.
Okay. So could you tell me what your plan is?
There are no plans to discuss. There's none.
The possibility exists that if you're redistricting, if you're drawing up maps that are going to change the legislative district as it appears today, the possibility exists that Westbury Newcastle and the new or proposed new map may no longer be part of Legislative 2. Isn't that correct?
No, not that I'm aware of.
So when you redraw the maps, what you're saying to me...
A little history. When the legislature was first formed, the very first things that were done was to see if they could create minority-majority districts.
Yes.
And two such districts, 1 and 2, and they got the numbers 1 and 2 because they were the first ones that were done. That's when those districts were changed. It has never been changed since that day, except internally to balance the population and to use the right percentages and things like that. But there's never been anything, as far as I know, to separate out the Westbury portion of District 2.
Well, I mean, I have very little access to maps. There's no maps here tonight, as Representative Wink indicated, to be able to understand exactly what your proposal is. So perhaps...
There is no proposal. That's my point.
I mean, there's a possibility that exists, that we may no longer be part of LD2 when the legislature makes its final decision. Am I correct? That's a possibility.
At the end of the day, the goal is to have 19 districts of approximately the same population, taking into account all of the legal factors that need to be considered in forming those districts. Therefore, if one district over the course of the last 10 years has gained a substantial population, it may have too many people, and some number of people may have to be redrawn into another district. Some other district may have lost population, and some number of people may have to be moved into that district by the redrawing of the lines. But the goal is to have 19 districts of approximately the same population using the criteria the law has provided. So it is theoretically possible, you are correct, it is theoretically possible that any community somewhere in Nassau County may be moved in terms of its district lines. But to the best of my knowledge, there has been zero discussion thus far of moving any particular community anywhere. So there's no proposal to move Westbury or to do anything about Westbury sitting before this commission.
What I'm asking this commission to do is that in considering redrawing those lines, that it considers the fact that Westbury wants to remain part of LD2.
And we appreciate that comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Middletown Lewis.
Middleton Lewis.
Middleton Lewis, thank you. One other question for you. So I want to make sure that we understand exactly the testimony. What I'm hearing from you, and please tell me if this makes sense to you, that Westbury and Newcastle, it's an important community.
Yes, it is.
They vote together.
Absolutely,
and they
we
should
do.
not be fractured into multiple different districts. So what we should be doing as we think through this process is we should ensure that Westbury and Newcastle are contained in the same district so that they don't have their voices diluted, and they have an opportunity, the voters in Westbury and Newcastle have an opportunity to elect candidates of their choice. Am I understanding you properly?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. And what I'm also saying is that the failure to do that would in fact muzzle our voices. This is something that we do not want. This is something that we do believe is undemocratic.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Shelby Lewis. Shelby Lewis? You're from Westbury, Newcastle as well, I see.
Yes.
Hello.
How could you tell? Can you hear me? Okay. Hi. My name is Shelby Lewis. As you mentioned, I'm a resident of Westbury, Newcastle. I am a former intern of District 2 legislator Sila Baino, and I'm also currently I am a consulting analyst for the professional services firm Accenture. And I'm also joined here tonight by other community leaders and stakeholders from Westbury, Newcastle. And we all come tonight to ask you to not consider recommending any proposed legislative district map that removes the predominantly minority portion of the village of Westbury and all of Newcastle from Legislative District 2. This community has been a part of LD2 since the Nassau County Legislature was first formed more than 25 years ago, and it should remain fully intact within the boundaries of the 2nd Legislative District. As the Temporary Districting Advisory Commission embarks upon this tremendously important process, it is vital for the process to be aligned with all relevant laws to ensure an orderly process. As you all are aware and have acknowledged during your debate and discussion, certain deadlines in the Nassau County Charter for completing this process currently conflict with New York State election law. And as a result of the change to the Unified June primary elections, the period for circulating designated petitions for the legislator election is set to begin on February 28th, 2023. However, the county charter requires the legislator to adopt district maps in March 7th. It's March 7th, 2023, 1 week before the petitions are set to go out. Left unresolved, this is a recipe for confusion, and as we've recently seen, a chaotic electoral process that only serves to disenfranchise voters and deprive them of their rights as Americans to fully participate in the democratic process. To correct this issue, the Minority Caucus of the Nassau County Legislature has proposed amending the Nassau County Charter to move the legislature's deadline to adopt district lines 2 months earlier to January 9th, 2023, and the Commission's deadline to submit recommendations to the legislature to November 7th, 2022. In doing so would create sufficient time for a final plan to be adopted and for the Nassau County Board of Elections to prepare for designating petitions. I understand that several individuals have stated that the Commission and the legislator have ascertained the need to get maps done before the deadline and that there's no urgent rush to change the law. But I respectfully and empathetically disagree. With nothing short of fair and equitable representation at stake, it is my belief that we must do everything that we can do to protect the sanctity of this process and remove any roadblocks to success that we encounter along the way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dan Oppenheimer.
Good evening. I'll be fairly brief because Commissioner Mejias and Mr. Pernick have said 99% of everything that's on my mind, perhaps even 100%. So, well done. The transparency and the need for the public to be able to look at and study the underlying data for these decisions is paramount. We're not all data experts, but we at least have to have the opportunity to look at it, to try to understand it, to ask educated questions. But if we don't have the underlying information, it's very, very hard to have an informed opinion about the process. One of the benefits of having the older information on the Nassau County website is that the December 2012 population data is actually available on that website for each district. Now, I don't know how accurate that was at the time. Certainly would not be as accurate today as it was then. It breaks it down by ethnicity, primarily white, black, Hispanic, Asian, Hawaiian, Amerindian, so not every possible ethnic group, some of the largest groups. It breaks it down by non-Hispanic whites, non-Hispanic black, the 18-plus population. So there's a lot of information here about the process that went into the prior redistricting. And I see that by population, it is relatively close for most of the districts. That doesn't in itself tell me if the process was fair, and it certainly doesn't tell me what that means for this year and the next 10 years. The changes in residents in Nassau County, the changes in population, as you probably know, are substantial and significant. We should have exactly this same identification information from the 2020 census. This comes from the 2010 census. The same data current is available. When we're talking about transparency, for me, I'm talking about this type of data. Commissioner, the chairman, you mentioned that meeting next week is canceled. Is that correct?
Yes.
And is that the one that was supposed to take place in Town of Hempstead Town Hall?
I'm not certain. Glen Cove, I believe it was.
Glen Cove?
Right.
So as far as you know, the one in Town of Hempstead is still scheduled?
Yes.
Okay, good. And Mr. Pernick, you also mentioned that some new state laws, federal guidelines. There's a lot of ingredients that go into this, and in the best of circumstances, I think you'd have a difficult job. If you're at odds with each other and not truly working together, the chances go way down that you're going to come up with a good decision. So even in the best of circumstances, you have a difficult job. I recognize that. So my concern and question is, what's the hierarchy of priorities on this? Is population number one? Is compactness of the district number one? Is it anything to do with age? From what I understand, you cannot take into account political affiliations. You can't go by the Democratic and Independent and Republican registration. So what are the ingredients? What's number one at the top line of that? What's number two? What's number three?
If I could answer that question for you, the municipal home rule law section, I'm not sure what the section is. It's Section 34, subdivision 4, says that reapportionment of members of its local legislative body shall be subject to federal and state constitutional requirements and shall comply with the following standards, which shall have priority in the order herein set forth.
In that order, okay.
First is the deviation. That's the 5% between the highest and lowest. The second is the taking into account equal opportunities for racial or language minority groups to participate in the political process or to diminish their ability to elect representatives of their own choice. The next is that the districts will be contiguous in territory. The next is districts shall be compact in form and as practicable. And that's where what Mr. B was saying earlier, where you may have to move people from one area to another. That's where the word practicable comes in. Districts shall not discourage competition for purpose of favoring or disfavoring incumbents or other particular candidates or political parties. The maintenance of the cores of the existing districts or of pre-existing political subdivisions, including cities, villages, and towns, or other communities of interest, shall also be considered to that extent. No villages, city, town. Got to turn the page. Except for those that have more than 40% of the full ratio of persons. And finally, the district shall be formed so as to promote an orderly and efficient administration of elections. So that's the priorities. That's top to bottom. That's the standards that both sides have to look at, and they sometimes require some difficult decisions as to who goes where and who goes someplace else. For example, there are some people in different villages say, well, why are you taking my village away? Well, maybe it's necessary because you don't have enough population. That's the concept of it, and that's what the law is set to do, and that's the law that they've sworn to take and they've sworn to take and follow, and that's the simple end and beginning of it. Now, there's also the federal statutes which deal with these things, and some of the new laws that may or may not apply to Nassau County. But the fact of the matter is that that's the guidelines, that's the roadmap, that's what needs to be done. That's why we have people from Newcastle, who and Westbury, who have ideas as to what they want to be kept together, and it may cause difficulty one way or the other. But that's why you're here, and that's why we want that. We want your opinions. We want to know what you have to say. Why? Because when you tell us what you have to say, and all of this information is going to go to the legislature, for them to consider. So they're all going to get everything you have said here tonight is going to go to them before they make a decision. They're the decision makers. We're not. We're here, though they're not, I should say. What we're here for is to get your opinions as to what needs to be done from a very local perspective. We have people from Port Washington, they have a perspective on it. We have people from Roslyn, they have a perspective on it. We have people from Newcastle and Westbury. That has to be taken into consideration. Drawing a map is one of those things. It's like a balloon. If you need population, you push it here. Somebody's got to fill the void. The population has to be within that 5% deviation. The closer you get to the deviation, the better the map is. But that doesn't mean that it's better in the eyes of people who live in that particular area. So there are the constraints of the law may cause discomfort to some people depending upon how they come out and how they come out at the other end. They are going to come up with a map, or maybe not come up with a map. They don't have to. So that's what they have to do is they have to exact your positions on what's going on. And I think that's a fair statement.
I have one other thing.
Sure.
Backed by popular demand. This is a map of my current district, District 14, Laura Schaefer. So according to my reading of the 2012 population figures, it meets that requirement pretty nicely. It's within 0.5% population-wise. That's good. This is not a compact district. This is not a contiguous district. It is not a commonality of interest. It goes from New Hyde Park Road to East of, I don't even know where it ends over there.
Levittown.
You can't drive directly through it without crossing through at least 2 other districts. When you say you might not come up with a map, you have to come up with something better than this. The village of Hempstead, as other people have mentioned, in their communities are split up into, in Roslyn, is split into 3 or 4 districts. I believe Hempstead is also 3 or 4 districts. So population is a very important part of it, but the other factors have to be taken into account. So if this is what you think a district should look like, then maybe you guys don't need to be up there.
Well, Mr. Oppenheimer, as the chairman said, we really do appreciate you coming down here and sharing your opinion. But I think it would be better for everybody if you had a more informed opinion, and rather than coming down here and listening to us tell you the law, this is why we've asked to have all of this information, all the law, the share files, the data files, the maps, everything posted on the website, on the TDAC webpage, so that you can see for yourself what's going on and make your own determination. The public shouldn't have to come down here to hear what the law is. We should be telling you, and we proposed a resolution that would do just that, which was voted down. So that, the home rule law, there's a lot of other legal precedents that are very important. I think Mr. Pernick could probably speak to that better than I can.
Sure. Well, Mr. Oppenheimer, I appreciate your question very much. You would ask what laws apply to this process.
Right.
And our chair gave an answer and talked about the municipal home rule, which is one of many different laws that apply to this process. Unfortunately, that answer was incomplete. It wasn't incorrect, but it was incomplete. We have the United States Constitution, which has an equal protection clause, which has a specific requirement for redistricting. It has been found from the United States Supreme Court cases going back to Baker v. Carr and Reynolds v. Sims in the 60s. It's been upheld to the present day in recent cases concerning the equal protection clause, such as Evanwell v. Abbott, govern this process and require governments at every level to ensure the districts have roughly the same population. So it tracks in some way the equal population requirements in the state law, but it's a separate requirement, and one that we need to be cognizant of. We also have the Federal Voting Rights Act of 1962. And in particular, Section 2 of the Federal Voting Rights Act, which was amended in 1982, and the controlling Supreme Court opinion that tells us what that law means is a 1986 opinion called Thornburg v. James, and it lays out a test for racial vote dilution under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. That law applies to us, 100%. We are required to follow the requirements under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which prohibits this county from drawing districts that discriminate against communities of color, that make it more difficult for communities of color to participate in the political process and elect candidates of their choice. The Jingles case from '86 lays out a 3-part set of preconditions that a plaintiff would need to prove to strike down a map. It lays out a number of other factors referred to as the Senate factors that we need to take into account when deciding whether we're obligated to draw additional majority-minority districts, additional districts in which voters of color have an opportunity to elect candidates of choice. Incredibly important. And there has been Section 2 litigation on Long Island. There has been Section 2 litigation here in Nassau County. So it's extremely important that we are cognizant of these requirements and take it into account. It goes far beyond what's in the municipal home rule law. We are also obligated to follow a new statute, the New York Voting Rights Act, or the John Lewis Voting Rights Act of New York, which I referenced earlier, which is now law, and it applies to Nassau County, 100%. We are obligated to follow the requirements and the prohibition on racial vote dilution, which is actually a more expansive standard than the standard under Section 2 in the federal law. So these are significant requirements. I believe our council was emailed a few days ago to request that all of these statutes, the text of the statutes, be posted on the website. I don't believe they've been posted on the website. Is any response to that email? No response to that email. So we've asked for the statutes, each of the ones that I mentioned, to be posted on the website so that members of the public can see them, can educate themselves about them. So I appreciate your question, Mr. Chair. I appreciate your answer. It was correct as to the municipal home rule law, but there are many other statutes that we need to take into
I appreciate that clarification because it seems, and I think importantly so, that the racial dilution is far more an important standard than simply meeting population. So the population could be off by 5%, and it still would be an acceptable district if it met the other more important standards that you referred to. So.
Yeah, I mean, we should endeavor to follow all of those standards, and it's important to be aware and thinking about each of those requirements, municipal home rule law requirements, the requirements in the federal law, the New York Voting Rights Act, and I have full confidence that we work together, as we collaborate, we can present a map to the legislature that complies with all of those requirements.
All right. Thank you very much for the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Denise Thompson.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Denise Thompson. I'm a proud resident of Westbury, and I'm here to strongly advocate to keep the Westbury community, Westbury-Newcastle community together. And I want this to be a part of the record. And the reason I'm here is I was a part of this process 10 years ago, and Westbury was actually apportioned off to Old Westbury in the initial map, but then Westbury was put back together with Legislative District 2. So Westbury was peeled off and proposed to be put with Old Westbury, and they have nothing in common except the name Westbury. So it clearly didn't belong there. But instead what happened was I live west of Old Country Road, and the part that I live in is now represented by Laura Schaefer. Everything I live west of Post Avenue. Everything east of Post Avenue is in LD2. And I believe that's the way it should stay. That the Westbury-Newcastle community should remain together, and should remain with LD2, which includes Lakeview, the village of Hempstead, and one other minority community. Because it's a minority-majority community, and that's the way I believe it should stay, and that's what I'm asking this commission to do. With Westbury and LD2, we retain community values or common values and interests with similar communities of color, and that's what we want to retain. Westbury has been well served with its current configuration, and our voices are stronger because we have voices with people of commonality. People with common voices, we're speaking the same language, and we're saying the same thing, and our representation is fair and strong. Now, as I mentioned 10 years ago, the original proposed maps removed Westbury from LD2 and placed it with Old Westbury, and then that should not have happened, and I'm happy that new maps were proposed and approved where Westbury, Newcastle remained part of LD2. And then lastly, we had a recent experience with our most recent primaries. The congressional districts were reconfigured, and Westbury was a part of CD4, is now part of CD5. And something interesting happened in that vote. The candidate that the residents of Westbury overwhelmingly selected by a 4-to-1 margin, that candidate didn't win. And I would subscribe that the candidate didn't win because Westbury's vote was suppressed because it was mixed in with a majority voice. So we're a small minority community among voices of the majority, and our vote was suppressed because we didn't have that minority representation. So I'm asking this commission, and again for the record, that Westbury remain a part of LD2. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bishop Lionel Harvey. Bishop Harvey. You left? Okay. Cynthia Johnson.
Good evening to the Commission. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and I must say that much of what I want to say has already been covered by other people from the Westbury-Newcastle community. More transparency is what I heard when I first came in, and that's very important. We need to keep more transparency, and we need to keep our district cohesive the way it has been drawn. I am a former principal
Principal Emeritus from Malvern, and I am the chairperson of the Board of Education of the Westbury Senior Center Board. I'm here tonight with other members of the Westbury community. We ask you not to consider recommending any proposed legislative district map that removes the predominantly minority portion of the village of Westbury and all of Newcastle from Legislative District 2. This community has been part of LD2 since the Nassau legislature was first formed more than 25 years ago, and it should remain fully intact within the boundaries of the 2nd Legislative District. I am also here to urge you to do everything in your power to safeguard and sanctify the integrity of the process that is now in place. My neighbors and I recently experienced firsthand how a disorganized, chaotic redistricting process inevitably made it harder for citizens to participate fully in their representative democracy. I am speaking specifically of congressional representation for the residents of Westbury and Newcastle. By the time the lawsuits over the maps had concluded and the special masters finally drew the maps that were used in the June primary, many of the neighbors, well-informed people, all were profoundly confused about who was running to represent them in Congress when they arrived at the polls. Not only was this process demeaning to the constituents of the Westbury and Newcastle community, it was downright undemocratic in how it suppressed the vote by frustrating people and discouraging several of my neighbors from voting at all. Now, as we begin the process of redrawing our legislative maps for the next 10 years, which is a long time, we have an opportunity to learn from the mistakes of the recent past. I urge you to take every necessary step and precaution to ensure that the residents of Nassau County get a better and more orderly outcome than the people of Newcastle and Westbury did just a few months ago. So many of our predecessors fought and died to secure and preserve the right to vote, and we must treat that process that is now unfolding with the seriousness and care that it deserves. And I thank you.
Thank you very much. Leslie Davis.
Good evening, everyone. I know I'm going to sound redundant, and I'm going to echo the sentiments of everybody behind me that is here from Westbury, Newcastle area. I'm a little hoarse, so I apologize, but please, just hear from our hearts. This is my Vice President, Robin Boland. I am the President of the Westbury, Newcastle NAACP. I'm a lifelong resident of the Westbury, Newcastle community, a former trustee of the Westbury Board of Education, and the current President of the Westbury, Newcastle NAACP. I am joined tonight by other members, my Vice President, and members of my Executive Board and of our branch. We have come tonight to ask the Commission to not consider recommending to the legislator any map of Nassau's legislative districts that removes the predominantly minority portion of the village of Westbury and all of Newcastle from Legislative District 2. This community has been a part of Legislative District 2 since Nassau legislature was first formed more than 25 years ago. We are concerned that consideration may be given to removing us from Legislative District 2 because there was an attempt to do that in the last redistricting 10 years ago. Swift and negative reaction from the community forestalled the option from being given further consideration, and the proposed map was withdrawn. We are acting preemptively now rather than waiting for a new, perhaps offensive map to be drawn and having to then bring awareness to our concerns after the fact. When the initial legislative districts were established in 1996, it was recognized that Westbury Newcastle had more in common with the communities of color to the south, such as Hempstead, Lakeview, Uniondale, Roosevelt, and Freeport, with the predominantly white communities on its borders, such as Jericho, Hicksville, and Old Westbury. The communities of color share familiar bonds that extend across geographic boundaries. They attend the same places of worship. They have similar socioeconomic backgrounds. They share similar social values and political interests. Finally, they share similar problems and concerns, which can best be addressed by being joined together with other communities of color in one district represented by one legislator who has personal knowledge of any or may share the same problems and concerns. By chiseling off Westbury Newcastle from its historic inclusion from Legislative District 2 and placing it with communities with which it shares limited political interests, social values, and commonalities, or real-life experiences, would be a disservice to its residents and further placing the Westbury Newcastle community into a majority district would dilute the ability of the predominantly black and brown community to elect a representative of its choice and would do a disservice to the Voting Rights Act. Westbury Newcastle has been well served by the inclusion of Legislative District 2, and we pray that it remains that way. We thank you for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Kevin McKenna.
Kevin McKenna. I want to give you, I like to try to talk like real life. I heard you say a little while ago that you might not redraw, redistrict. I want to give you a real example of why you might think twice about that. And I'm going to talk about Hicksville. A couple people before me just spoke about Laura Schaefer's district. I think the gentleman showed you a squiggly map. Hicksville, right now, in case you don't know, has 3 legislators. 2 of them are Republican, and 1 of them is a Democrat. Hicksville, since 10 years ago, has changed dramatically in population, in ethnicity, so on and so forth. There is a major rat problem in Hicksville. Rats, you know, those animals with the tails? And there's also a rat problem across Nassau County. And Legislator Walker, one of the Republican legislators, was at a community meeting a few months ago, and she heard the residents loud and clear about the rat problem in Hicksville, simply because the town of Oyster Bay, which Ms. Fitzgerald is a part of, doesn't enforce town code in Hicksville. Be that as it may. So Legislator Walker told everybody at the community meeting that Nassau County lost their funding that goes to the Department of Health to help to prevent the rat problem. But Legislator Walker said she was going to do what she could, and she did. She worked with Legislator Ferretti, and I just found out a couple of weeks ago that Legislator Walker announced a program, and she put together a flyer that I guess was paid for by Nassau County. And that flyer about the rat preventative program that Legislator Walker spearheaded, that flyer only went out to Legislator Walker's constituents in one part of Hicksville. The other 2 legislators' constituents in the same town knew nothing and still knows nothing about the program that Nassau County, or Legislator Walker says Nassau County, announced. That's a whole other story, because I'm not going to get into that. The program she announced really doesn't even exist, but that's marketing. That's all smoke and mirrors. But that's a real example of how 3 districts in one not even a mile, not even a 1 mile circumference, affects the residents. And I'm going to give you one other in Hicksville. There's the Broadway Mall, right? And the examples I'm giving you are real-life examples that might apply in other hamlets all over Nassau County, but I'm most familiar with Hicksville. I live in Syosset. The Broadway Mall happens to have a second precinct, or maybe it's an eighth precinct, Nassau County Police Department satellite office. So the Democratic legislator, who likes to promote himself, I won't mention any names, he announces, and he announces it only on his Facebook page, even though he says he works across the aisle with the other two legislators in the same area. He announces this is only 3 weeks ago. He announces come meet the Nassau County Police Department, bring your kids, and they can touch the fire trucks and they can touch the police cars, and plus we're going to give you free school supplies. The Broadway Mall merchants are going to give free school supplies. Only his constituents in Hicksville. Only the kids in his district were able to come and touch the fire trucks and touch the police cars and get the free school supplies. So I strongly encourage you to seriously think twice about that statement, because I really believe, Mr. Chairman, on this side, I really believe that you don't want to redraw the districts. Okay, now, in closing, and I thank you for not cutting me off because I'm used to being cut off. I listened a lot to or have heard a lot, Chairman Mejias say that these guys didn't do this and didn't do that, and the fact of the matter is, I'm probably the only person. I'm broadcasting this right now on Nassau County NY News live, okay? For the past 2 weeks, I am the only person that right now has put up a post for my 16,000 followers in Nassau County that follow my page, and I get 40,000 views a month on my page. I'm the only person that has put up a meme that I was able to get, thankfully, from the clerk of the Nassau County Legislature, or his assistant. I'm the only person that has posted that for the public to see the dates with the addresses, because I guarantee you tonight, and you should check, how many people tonight went to 1550 Franklin Avenue for this meeting? Because when you go on the Nassau County Ledge website, I don't care what you say, you could show me as many maps as you want up there, Mr. Chairman. The addresses of the meetings between now and the last meeting that you've announced on October 3rd, the addresses are not on the Nassau County Legislative website. I'm the only person who has made the public aware of that. What I don't understand, though, is that, Mr. Mejias, rather than, they're never going to do it, okay? They're never going to do all the great suggestions that you have. They're not going to do it. What is stopping you from getting your Democratic legislators from announcing on their Facebook pages what the main ledge is not doing? Why aren't there are some Democratic legislators that are doing it now because I've called them and asked them to do it, but why aren't all the Democratic legislators doing what you want them to do? I don't get it. Not one Republican legislator, not one, has told their constituents about the importance of these meetings, the times, the dates, so on and so forth. So, you know, I ask you, what's stopping you from doing? Don't you have the same authority with the Nassau County person who posts on the website? In other words, I know that the clerk of the legislature is I guess the That's where it gets posted. But who's the IT person that is told to do this? Don't you have the same authority as a chairman to tell that IT person that I want this posted?
I would love to. I mean, we submitted a public notice to the clerk's office, which was never published or never stamped in.
So I asked her, okay.
So we've tried to do that, but unfortunately, the clerk's office controls the clerk of the legislature controls the website and what's posted on the website. We can only do what we can do, which is follow the law, follow the procedure, and when we want a public notice published, we submit it to the clerk's office. We did that, and it wasn't even time stamped, and we didn't get a stamped copy, and it was never published.
So is the clerk, Mr. Pulitzer, is he requesting to an IT person? Because I know this gentleman here, and I got to believe that he is trying to have it posted on. So is there somebody that because he's not, I'm sure he's not the IT guy that goes on the computer and posts it on. Is he having a problem?
Mr. Pulitzer is capable of coding?
No, I'm saying he's not the person that does the technical part. So is he requesting, please put these dates and times up with the addresses, and are they not listening to him? I'd like to know the answer to that question.
We're doing the best we can to try and get as many people notice of these meetings as possible. We're the ones posting everywhere and trying to calling community members because, the public notices, there are none on the county website, and as far as we're concerned, it's not.
Why not your side? Why not create a website, your own website, a redistricting website? Why do you have to depend upon why can't you create your own website?
Because we don't have the capacity and we don't have the ability or the authority.
Well, you have someone sitting over there to the right. You have Rachel Whitmore over there to the right who has the technical capability. Why don't you have her put up a website?
Ask the question. Let me answer it. Right?
I just want to say that.
We
I hear
have
you.
the ability to post it on the county website. And the public should not be going to 10 different places to figure out what's happening with redistricting. The whole goal of having one central place and in that everybody can go to where all these laws are posted, and maybe we should even post links to the Supreme Court and New York State Court decisions as well so the public could read that themselves. The whole goal is to have one place where the entire county can go to get all of the information that they want about redistricting and where these meetings are. It makes no sense to have drive people to multiple locations to figure out what's going on in the county. The whole purpose of the county spending your tax dollars to have this website is to do exactly that. It's not up to the public to spend their own money and their own time to do the job that the government we're paying for should be doing.
So I ask your co-chairman to your right, does it bother you, Mr. Chairman, that you do not have the addresses of the meetings between now, not on the web? Does that bother you?
Actually, if you had taken the paper that I gave to one of the ladies.
Sir, before I walked in the room, I went on the website, and there are no addresses on the Nassau County website. They're not there. So you could keep making that statement over and over. You could have me look at a piece of paper. I'm not looking at a piece of paper. I know they're not on the website. Thank you very much.
They're on the website. And Mr. McKenna, if you go to the back of the room, you'll see somebody who has it on his cell phone. Okay, our final speaker, Rory Langman. Is it Langman or? Thank you.
Close enough. I've had work. Good evening, everyone. Back in 2011, in the State Assembly, during the last redistricting, I was summoned to a meeting with the powers that be and given a map of my assembly district and its surrounding neighborhoods. I was given a pencil and told to draw 3 things on the map. Those areas that I wanted to keep, those areas that I'd like to add, and those areas that I'd like to get rid of. Basically, the Assembly Democrats drew the Assembly lines, the Senate Republicans drew the Senate lines, and since they couldn't agree on the congressional lines, those were drawn by a federal court-appointed special master.
In response to that farce, politicians picking their voters instead of voters picking their politicians, in 2012 we passed the first step of a constitutional amendment which was ultimately approved by the voters in 2014, establishing an independent redistricting commission. It imposed substantive standards, which last year the legislature also imposed on local redistricting. And it mandated a robust public input process through well-publicized and timely hearings. I'm here tonight to say that this commission's hearing and public input process is not what it should be. First, on the issue of public information. At least as of 3 o'clock this afternoon, the hearing schedule is not on the commission's webpage, and the county website had the wrong time for tonight's meeting. The commission webpage has links to view the, quote, most recent agenda and, quote, all agendas and minutes, but the only items available are from the 2013 commission. Even though this year's commission, you all, has met and considered and voted against several resolutions seeking to open the process. It lacks links to the governing statutes, charter provisions, and constitutional sections controlling this process so that people can understand the backdrop and the foundation for what this process is about. It lists the commissioners by name, but it provides no biographical or professional information. It even lacks links to current maps and census data for voters to easily see where the commission is starting from. All of these things are standard features on redistricting commission websites, including the state's website last year and the New York City Council's website as it goes through redistricting this year. On the issue of public input, if I understand the schedule put out by the majority, the commission is not going to hold public hearings for the public to comment on its proposed maps, but rather will transmit them immediately or almost immediately to the legislature. That is not defensible. There needs to be another round of hearings, not just even a separation of time, as I think the chair indicated there would be, but another round of hearings for the public to comment on the maps that you propose before you finalize them and transmit them to the legislature. Finally, on the issue of public access, there just aren't enough hearings, especially in communities of color and poorer communities. I don't need to tell you how difficult mass transit is in Nassau County. You need to have hearings close to where people live so they can find the time to testify. And you need to have a virtual hearing for people who have difficulty attending a live hearing early in the evening. I urge you to address these issues. We all have our partisan leanings, myself as well. But an open and transparent process makes for good government, good results, and especially for results that won't get overturned by a court. I am confident that no member of this commission wants to spend the time and effort that you are spending as volunteers only to have it all end up being redrawn by a special master and all of your hard work gone for nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me finish. The next meeting, it will be on September 22nd, Wednesday, at 6 o'clock at Hempstead Town Hall at 1 Washington Street, Hempstead, New York. 21st? Now my eyes are going. The 21st, September 21st. Oh, let me correct myself. Let me take their corrections. It's Wednesday, September 21st at 6 p.m. in Hempstead Town Hall. Did I get it right that time? Did you get it right that time? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I just have a question about some process that I heard. Mr. McKenna was asking about getting things on the county clerk, giving things to the county clerk and then asking for it to be put on the website? Is that the process? You can ask the county clerk to put things on the website, and then do you get it confirmed for you that it's going on the website?
We, you know, as a commissioner, we asked for a public notice that he sent out, which was not.
Okay. And so, does that happen a lot?
No.
Does it mean that any
I
time
don't know
you...
that it's ever happened, but...
Okay.
So,
all right. I just wanted to find out about the process and wonder if it's happening quite a bit, and what can you do about it if it is?
we can have a vote. What we could do is propose resolutions to the commission and have a vote on it. And I think you're at the last meeting where a lot of the you know, the Assemblyman's suggestions and other people's suggestions here tonight were actually in our resolutions, both, you know, virtual hearing, the litany of the resolutions. We asked for the resolutions to be posted, and we had a vote on the resolutions, and they were all voted down.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just worried about the connection between can you post this, and then something not getting posted. Thank you.
Okay, is there any other business? We're adjourned until the 21st.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Chairman.
I'll move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn does not require a second, but all those in favor signify by saying aye. The ayes have it unanimously. Senior Commission 1095.